Thank you for watching this Excel with Finance video. In this video I'm going to show you how to build a useful and dynamic amortization schedule to show in each period of payment for a particular loan you might have what the payment number is, the starting principal, what your payment is going to be, how much that payment goes to interest, how much goes to principal, and then what the ending principal is going to be. Up here in the gray boxes, I designate gray boxes as the boxes for inputs. We're going to be putting in all of the inputs for this loan. So suppose that I have a $10,000 loan. I select whether it's yearly or monthly, or whether I'm thinking about this in yearly or monthly, and then let's say it's a 1-year loan, which means my total number of payments is 12. Now I could, if I wanted to, do a monthly and then just do 12, and I would get the exact same thing. But I'm going to go with yearly and 12. And then suppose that the APR that I got for this, the interest rate for this is 8.5%. Then Excel automatically computes my monthly payment, and I can see that the amortization schedule gives me for all 12 periods what my payment is going to be, the starting principal, how much of my payment goes to interest, principal, the ending principal, and then it ends at 0. Now suppose that I want to add an extra $100 per pay period. Well, if I add $100 per payment, then we can see that it drops to only 11 payments needed to end out the loan, and we see that the last payment is not exactly $972. So up here I've calculated is how many payments your additional payment amount will save you, and how much interest that additional payment will save you. And this is a totally dynamic table, so if I now want to think about this in terms of a house, then I could put $300,000 and 30 years and 5% or so, and then I can add an extra $100, and if I add an extra $100 per payment, then I will save about $40,000 in interest overall. So now that I've shown you what this thing is, I'm going to now show you how to build it. The first step to building this is going to be to put all the inputs over here in the top left-hand corner. I've already gone ahead and done them. Now the inputs that are going to be user inputs are going to be these top 3, which I'm going to then highlight gray. And then it's going to be the APR, which I will highlight gray, and then the additional payment amount, which I will also highlight gray. Now in this time periods box, if you noticed, I had a drop-down box in the completed file. So to create a drop-down box, all I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the second tab, and I'm going to put in the list of items that I want in the drop-down box. So I'm going to add select, which I'm going to leave as the default for whenever the workbook opens, and then year and month. Now to put those in the drop-down box, all we do is we just click, we go to Data, Data Validation, and then add a list from a list. Then it asks you, well, where is this list? And so I just go to Sheet 2, highlight the list, and go back. So now if we go back here, we now have a drop-down box, and we can click Select, and then I'll centerline that just so it looks nice and formatted. So the periods is going to end up being however many periods you want. So let's say this is a 10-year loan. So the user would put 10 here, and they would select year. Now they could also select months and put 120, however they want to do this. So the way that I make that dynamic is I just use an if statement. So I just say if this time period equals year, then I want this time periods to be multiplied by 12, but if not, well, the only other option I'm given is that it's monthly, and so then it's just going to give me the time period. And so this is monthly, and there we go. So the APR is going to be something, so I'm going to go ahead and put some numbers in here, just so you can see. Then the APR, 0.05%, make that decimal formatting, make that dollar formatting, I want to center align you and center align you. And now I'm going to use the payment function to calculate my payment. So I'm going to assume the APR that all compounding and payments are done monthly. So the APR, so the rate on my loan is going to be whatever the APR is divided by 12. The number of periods is just going to be the total number of calculated periods right here. The present value of the loan is going to be just whatever the principal amount, and we don't actually have to put in the future value of the loan because Excel automatically assumes that the future value is 0. So we calculate that. Now we notice that we get a negative number here. Now this is because Excel calculates negative numbers as money going away from you and positive numbers as money coming towards you. So since I'm getting a loan, which is $100,000 coming towards me, my payments are going to be money going away from me, which means negative. Now I don't really like that, so I'm just going to go ahead and put a negative sign in front of it because that makes sure that my payment amount is positive. And then my additional payment can be just whatever I want to put in right here. The next step in building this amortization schedule is going to be to actually build the table itself. So I'm going to go ahead and put all the header values that we need in these columns. All right, so in this first column, this payment number column, payment start at 1 unless there isn't any payment to be made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a quick if-then statement, and what this if-then statement is going to say is it's going to ask if the payment equals 0, which is just means there's no payment, give me a 0. If not, give me a 1. And you'll see why I do this in a little bit. It'll have to do with calculating correctly the payment saved and the interest saved. So that's going to give me a 1. Now in this first line, the starting principal is just going to be equal to whatever the initial principal amount is. The payment is going to be equal to the payment amount, and then I make sure I anchor on that because I'm going to end up dragging these down, plus the additional payment amount, and to anchor you just hit F4 in a PC, and so I anchored there, and that's going to be the payment. So the total payment is going to be $1066. The interest is going to be whatever the starting principal is times whatever the rate is, and make sure you anchor on that so that way when you drag down it doesn't move, divided by 12. And the principal is just going to be whatever the payment is minus how much that payment goes to interest. So our ending principal is just going to be the starting principal minus the amount of the payment that goes to principal. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make this table dynamic. So we want it to be able to go down for a long time. So I'm going to use a statement here, and we want the table like in what we saw to go blank after your loan is done being paid. So starting at line 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an if statement. So I'm going to ask if the ending principal of the previous period is greater than 0, then give me whatever the previous payment is plus 1. If not, give me a blank. And now what we want to do is we're going to want to drag this down to maybe however many you think is a reasonable number. We'll say there's not a lot of loans that have more than 1,000 periods, and we can see that our formula is working. So here it's asking the question, is this ending principal greater than 0? And we can see obviously that it is. And so it's giving us the number 2. However, right here, since we haven't completed the table, it's saying, well, that number, there's nothing there, that's a 0, so it's returning a blank for us, which means that formula is working. Now, in the next column, in the starting principal for payment 2, or period 2, is just going to be the ending principal for the previous month. The payment is going to be exactly the same. However, in some situations, especially if you're adding additional payments or additional month, then the last payment will actually be less than whatever your payment amount is. So to account for this, we're going to use another if statement. So we're going to simply ask the question, if the ending principal from the previous month is less than your payment amount, the amount that you're paying each month, then all you're going to do is you're just going to pay the ending principal amount plus whatever interest you're going to accrue, which will end up being in D12, because we'll calculate that in just a second. And if not, then just give me the payment amount, which is going to be the payment plus the additional payment. And in most cases, this is going to be a very simple, just gives us the payments, and everyone except for the very last case. Now the interest payment is going to be the same formula. It's just going to be whatever the starting principal is. So now, and the principal calculation, the amount of your payment that goes to principal is going to be the same, and the ending principal is the ending principal amount is also going to be the same. So we just drag that formula down. Now all we want to do is we just want to drag these formulas down. So you can actually quick drag, because there's stuff in this first column right here. I can quick drag down, which means I highlight all of these, I put my cursor right in the bottom right hand corner, and I double click. Now you can see with this, it just drags all the formulas down, and on the appropriate cell it ends at 0. But we end up getting these kind of ugly blanks and 0 terms afterwards, which aren't very pretty. So the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is I'm going to show you how to tidy that up a bit. To make it a little bit easier to deal with, let's just go with years, and then let's go with just 1 year. So that way we can see very easily exactly what we need to do. So the solution to getting rid of these numbers is actually fairly simple, because we've already written a code or written a formula right here in this payment number that turns it into a blank whenever we want it to be a blank. So what we can do is, just starting with this second row, we just use an if statement, and we're just going to ask if the payment number is equal to a blank, then I want this to be a blank also. And if not, then give me whatever we just had. And so I can do that, but to make this a little bit easier, I'm just going to highlight this. I can just paste it at the front of all my formulas, and then I can go here and then close with a parentheses, and then go here and close with a parentheses, and then go here and close with a parentheses, and then go here and close with parentheses. Now we can drag this down. Okay, now it's giving us an error. This is, I expected this. This is okay. The reason why it's giving us an error is because this function right here is asking if this number, or if this is greater than 0. And it can't answer that question because this is defined to be text, because we put in a double parentheses as a space. But this is very, very easy to solve. The way we solve it is we just come up to this column, and then we use the if error function. So if error. And the if error just basically says, if whatever this value gives you is an error, then give me something else instead. And I'm just going to say, give me a parentheses instead. So I drag that down, and voila, we have a nice, pretty amortization table. Now the next thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to do a little formatting to make this a little bit prettier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight those. I'm going to highlight this whole area, because I want this whole area to be in dollar format. So I'm going to put it as dollars and get rid of the pennies because they don't really matter. I'm going to make this column center aligned. And the last thing I want to do is I want to be able to make sure that I can always see this top row. So to do that, I just highlight the row underneath it. I go to View, I go to Freeze Panes, and then I just click on this Freeze Panes button. You see it just put a little line right there, which means that no matter how far you scroll down, you will always see these top rows, which is very useful for us. I'm also going to do a little bit of formatting here too. I'm going to turn this into dollars and get rid of the pennies, and this I also want to be dollars and get rid of the pennies. And so now I've got a fairly well formatted file. The last thing that this file needs is it needs the payments saved and the interest saved. So by doing the extra payments. So the payments saved and the interest saved, and we'll put those in just right here. Now the payment saved is just going to be simply the total number of payments minus the number of payments that you would have done had you not done any extra payments. So the total number of payments that you would have done otherwise is just going to be this number right here, and the total number of payments and it's just going to be the total number of payments you would have done minus the total number of payments you actually did, which is just going to be the maximum of this payment number column. And so I'm just going to highlight all that, and we hit, so in this case we saved 0 payments. However, we might have saved some interest. But so let's see. So the interest that we would have paid is just simply going to be simply the difference between the total amount that we would have paid had we not made any extra payments and the total amount that we paid given that we paid extra payments. So the total amount that we would have paid is just going to be simply equal to the payment amount multiplied by the total number of payments. That's if you paid nothing extra. Now the total that we actually paid is just going to be the sum of this total payments column. And then we're going to put that there. And so we see, even though we didn't save any actual payments, by making an extra $100 a month on our little 1-year loan, we saved $27, which isn't a whole ton. But if we think about this more for a $300,000 loan over 30 years, and we make an extra $100 a month, we can see now that we save 44 payments, which is a significant, about 4 years, and we save $40,000 in interest payments total on the cost of this loan. So this is a very useful and dynamic amortization schedule, and I hope you enjoyed this.